Hey guys, we are back. It's Dr. Lisa. How are you? I've missed you. And this episode is going to go there. We are talking lipstick patriarchy. We are talking the role and evolution of feminism. You are hearing the dogs in the background. I am doing this at the time of the new moon. And I did that purposely for the energy of it. I'm excited to be back with you. I wanted to restart and boot up season 4. Around this, you'll be seeing a couple episodes. I have Dr. Brooke, who came out yesterday night, and I'm promoting today. I have this coming out for the evening of the new moon. And tell me what you think about some of the conversations that, or the topics I'm bringing up. And I really, on this new season, I really want to address the things you want to talk about. So imposter syndrome and expanding what is health, and even our financial wealth, and having conversations not only with the lady leaders who have flipped their pain and turned it into a passion and a project in some way, but also in the evolving conversation around feminism and what I believe and I get into in this episode, into really becoming the first wave of fraternity. So I get into I give you a little action step on a little homework to do, and I really want to hear back what your discoveries were. I look forward to having this next session with you, and again, I'm so happy to be back. If you'd be so kind as to give me a nice 5-star rating over on the iTunes. You can listen to me over on a couple of different, your favorite format. But if you are listening on iTunes and you did resonate with this episode, if you can give me a 5-star review, that really helps me find other women like you and men, conscious men in the conversation. And that helps me connect with them. So I would appreciate you to help get the word out, because I'm not a big production here. And I'm excited to see where we're at with Owning Her Health now.
Welcome to this episode of Owning Her Health with your host, Dr. Lisa Holland. Join Lisa as she starts the conversation on what it really takes to become a healthy, wealthy, and whole CEO of your life. Listen in to real talk by real lady leaders in all walks of life as they open up on personal health stories, wealth, career, and feminine abundant living. Learn how to grow by owning your body, expanding your mind, and aligning your soul with the purpose only you can pursue in this world. Happiness begins with owning her health right now.
We are back for season 4, and I am just really sitting here. The new moon, I purposely waited to record this until the new moon is coming in. I am in the southeast, in actually the very southern part of South Carolina, right on the border of North Carolina and Charlotte area, Charlotte metro region. Rainstorms just came in. It feels like a cleansing. It got really dark, and I was like, wow, this is exactly the energy of kind of what the new moon is, right? It's the time of the month we can't see, and we're in that sort of trust that moon is still there, right? It didn't disappear. It's just the earth has gotten between the sun and the moon, and they're exactly juxtaposed from each other, right? We have this night and day, this polarity in coming in every new moon. Whereas in the full moon, we're all in alignment to see the beauty of that reflection and enlightenment and satellite that sits there so powerfully, pulling us towards it, giving us gravity, giving us this relationship we have. Not floating all over the place, being grounded in the earth. And I just thought this would be a really good moment to reflect on my last year and reintroduce the show to you and get some feedback from you, just reconnect in this new cycle, because I deeply, deeply feel like something's up. I mean, I've been teaching yoga for really since 2001, when I brought it in very mechanically, thinking I was just going to expand my physical therapy, but I ended up in a Phoenix Rising class locally, wanting to learn more for the therapeutics. And at the time, that was really all that was afforded to me in terms of a more therapeutic look. And I realized how good it was for my psyche. And I had been in a class earlier in 1995 or so, 95 or 6, and it was a Kundalini class. And for those of you who don't know Kundalini, it is the practice of a lot of the energetic work, a lot of the breath work. It's a subtle practice. I say it's a more formal. It's the Yin style. It's a lot of the energetics work. So the Kundalini is sort of the wisdom rising in the yogic traditions, in the yogic philosophy of why the medicine works, because it really is us coming into from a fold and a very low center of being and a very protected, in the ground version of ourselves in a very animalistic, primal way, and slowly, like the snake charmer, life and things and our own understanding and our own experiences, our own desires to learn more, our own feelings of where we're pulled, slowly but surely bring us to raise our consciousness, rise that snake, be the snake charmer out of. You might even be able to hear that. Did you hear that thunder on this recording? I don't know, but it's all so wonderful right now. But be that snake charmer for ourselves to rise our wisdom, to rise our inner knowing, which is so different than what you think of when we think of how education is now, right? Just like dumping more and more information. It's like when you put too much information on your computer and it just runs and runs and runs and runs and it just can't connect because there's just so much crap on it. This is, we load the kundalini down, we load the inner wisdom down. The more we load it with these opinions and choices and the way that we've decided to think about things in a very disconnected, disunioned way. And so I was in a class that was working on that, and I remember leaving, and it really was just breath work and moving around, but it was getting things moving. It was getting things, the issues in my tissues, it was moving it. It was a very good teacher, but he was in the middle of a Long Island gym with weights clanking all around, and there was a lot of distraction. There was bright lights in there. It just was the wrong environment. But again, this was 1995, right? That's where you saw yoga. They didn't have these yoga communities like we have now. And I ran from it. And it was just, me sort of seeing it and trying to expand. It called me back. And so many people who are brought to yoga are sort of called to it. And those that go into yoga medicine, yoga therapy, really are usually because they found out on their own how much of a medicinal use this practice could be. And I was one of those people, and I'm glad I was. But it's kind of funny to me because years later in 2013, I had a wonderful reading from a very well-known astrologist around me who since passed away, so I feel very blessed. He passed away just a couple months after I finally connected with him after years of kind of avoiding it for whatever reason. He gave me this wonderful, an hour and a half talk reading, and he said to me that, you could be, your star placement has you as this world-renowned Kundalini teacher. And I laughed because of that experience I had. It had been exactly the practice that I ran from myself from. And the funny thing is now I guide all these women in the Goddess Wisdom Mastermind. And really what I'm doing is reconnecting them with their Kundalini. I'm reconnecting them with their inner core wisdom, with their softer, subtle energies, with a type of leadership style that has not been celebrated, but it should be, because we can see where we are in a world of just focus on destruction and haphazard creation for the self, which again is a very primal, ignorant, lower level animalistic survival tactic. It came in wonderfully when we were still in caves, maybe even when we were very ignorant, when we didn't have the internet, when we didn't know how other cultures lived, when we needed to have some extra protection because we didn't understand. But that has since died. Okay. And I think COVID-19 and the process of 2020 vision confirms that. You know, those of us in the world of mind, body, and soul healing have for a very long time understood that you are an energetic being. You know, we very much understand E equals MC squared. It's not M equals blah, 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 blah. E equals MC squared. Energy from which everything is equals mass is just a piece of that. Okay, and we know by logic, right? The big thing, cannot be what the little piece is. The piece is a piece of the big thing, but the big thing is not the piece, right? So our mass, our physical body, is, you know, what we've been so focused on, and we've really ignored what other, you know, cultures have known, which is they focused on the energy. And I know the westernized cultures have had a really hard time relating to that because we don't like to feel. There's always a going joke that, you know, English in the UK, you know, they don't even smile. And I know here in America, with what has gone on, we went through a real personal authority, self-identity, nationalistic type of purging of really, what does that mean? Does that mean that every man for himself mentality? I mean, is that really, is the whole colonization thing we do all the time really actually for global unification? Can we have those two things work cohesively? And it's really becoming apparent the answer is no. So it really is a rising kundalini, or kundalini rising, an awareness, a wisdom, and our inner ignorance. And it is that snake. The depiction of the kundalini is that snake. And for a long time, you know, I was like bothered by, or trying to understand, gosh, why do you see in ancient Egyptian cultures and even the first symbolism of medicine, and to this day you see the snakes wrapping around the wand, right? You see the symbolism being this rising snake. But then you have this contrast, right? You have this contrast about a snake in the garden. And this snake got into this woman's head called Eve. And Eve supposedly went over to Adam and corrupted him. And I always thought there was something wrong with that story. Because first of all, we never hear the other half of it, the subtle side. We never really focus too much on what exactly was Eve doing. She was sharing. She was trying to share the wisdom. And the way that the story is presented, if you look at it, it doesn't say she was malicious or she was conniving or trying to take control or take her ego. It says she was convinced she should be able to be smart too, and ate the damn apple and shared it. So, you know, you assume by the fact they both had wisdom or whatnot that, you know, she ate the apple too. But what if in giving Adam the apple, it was helping him be more like her, and that she always saw him naked, but she didn't have a big problem with it. She wasn't as obsessed and primal because he was made the king of the animals. He was there to name all the animals. But we never really get into what I believe Eve was there and given the honor to do. She was the queen of all the plants. And she named all the flowers. And that's why she was by the tree, by the way. That's why she was by the tree. I mean, you never really thought about the woman's point of view on these things because it's a patriarchy. It's a patriarchy, and we can only raise our kundalini, raise our wisdom, and even give our education and bog ourselves down from the perspective of the patriarchy, because that's the chosen social system, social organization system most of the world chose. But it's not the only point of view. And so here on this new moon, in this new earth, at a time that's still under a lot of chaos and transition, I'm going to ask you to just start to welcome your own goddess wisdom, whether you're woman, man, uh, whatever you feel your sexuality is, whatever you feel your labels are, your roles, start to look at them from this feminine point of view, wherever you're at. And you're going to say to yourself, when I give you this challenge, there's going to be a couple different answers. There's going to be the answer, I can't. I have no idea how it is to look at things other than the way I do. And that's not just the men, by the way. There are a lot of women, which I'm labeling you the lipstick patriarchy. I have evolved from you, so I know it well. But there are a hell of a lot of women there that are very convenienced by living in the patriarchy just as much as the men. And there's always been conflict. But I think we're evolving women now. There's not everyone. Everyone's at their own pace. But there are men, conscious men, who are evolving into a consciousness of the feminine. There are evolving women who are embracing and evolving into their consciousness of the feminine. And what we're going to see when we get up that rising Kundalini, when it rises up, which is what Kundalini yoga does, it fuses, it works with Tantra, it works with that unity between the masculine and the feminine into something brand new and unified that is not in a duality anymore. But it's also not a copycat. Each and every union is unique. Just like every single time you literally physically have sex with someone, even the same someone, it's a unique experience. Even though you're literally doing the same things, it's a unique experience. So every meeting of the minds, every energy, every relationship you have is a lesson to be learned. And that's really where we're going. And so as the new moon comes in right now and a new cycle, I welcome you to start seeing things from a new point of view. Start thinking of the stories you heard, like I just described, and maybe take a question, go in, and if you want to speak to your pastors and you want to speak to your rabbis and you want to ask them some questions, ask from this perspective. What were the women really doing? What was their perspective on everything? What was the perspective of, as you're lining everybody up on Noah's Ark, if that's your point of view, what was Noah's wife thinking? What was her input? Because the first place we have where there was a mutual discussion on an even fraternal way is the story of Mary Magdalene. And we all know how that she was portrayed, right? Like, how could we portray her as anything less than what she was? And they did it because it didn't fit into the patriarchy. It didn't fit into the patriarchy model, which is an elitist model, which assumes that women are little men, if they are even women. In fact, I will give you an example. I want everybody to go to a book, let me get the book's name, Sex, Power, and Money, I believe it is. You won't believe this is written in 2020. They have a whole chapter dedicated to the fact that orgasms, first of all, men didn't believe women could have orgasms. I'm not quite sure why they believe that, but Sex, Time, and Power, it's called, by Leonard Schlain, Schlain. I'm 3 hours into the audiobook. It's an 11-hour audiobook. I don't think I could finish this thing. I mean, I'm listening. I'm like, how are you so awestruck at the evolution of understanding that women could even have an orgasm? And then when they did, they just couldn't believe. I mean, literally, women were locked up. They were literally put in psych wards because of their pleasure experiences. And this wasn't that far long ago, okay? Medicine itself, we forget the Western model only came out in 1810. Before that, it was all naturopaths and osteopaths. And the funny thing is that functional medicine's bringing all that naturopath and osteopath stuff back in. So we've really come full circle in our understanding of sex, time, and power. And I really challenge you, listening to this, is to go back in all the ways you were taught to be a woman or a man. And I want you to look at it from the feminine point of view. What's the feminine point of view? It's the collaborative point of view, the caring. It's the moving from, I think we all can understand the maiden, right? She's sexy and vital and fertile, and she's a go-getter. She's very much just the first generation from the masculine and what he knows and what we've been taught. That's the patriarchy. The maiden, staying in the maiden form your whole life is basically staying in the lipstick patriarchy, which is my term for putting on a high heels and some lipsticks and then going and joining the boys' game. Because they let you in and you could, and that's great and everything, but it burns you out, okay? You can't do Anthony Robbins' programs of priming for while you're giving birth and lactating and raising children and expect that you're not going to be all withered up and worn out by the time you hit your menopause. You're gonna have killed your adrenals, and your estrogen stores are not going to have anything to go to when you lose your period. This is what I work with women's health so long. It was an evolution. It's what we had to do. It's what we had to do. You have to meet people where they are, and you become a chameleon. That's survival, but we're no longer in survival. In order for the world to move towards thriving, a thrivalist mentality, and to break away from a survivalist mentality, we're going to need to shift into a fraternal evolution. And the only way we're going to shift into a fraternal evolution is if we stop the patriarchy. And in order to stop the patriarchy model, we're going to have its opposite, which is fraternity in place. But in order to have that, we need to recognize the other half of the equation, which we never quite have. As much of an independent woman as I became, being born in 1972, I was right there. That was the start of Ms. Magazine by Gloria Steinem. I was right there while she was just coming out with the Playboy Bunny story and saying all of that. But it was an angry against man thing because we were victimized, but we also then victimized ourselves by going into those workforces and not necessarily welcoming the men home, right? We didn't necessarily welcome them off of there. We were still reading our daughters, A Knight in Shining Armor is going to be coming down and saving them from things. We were still showing them Disney films where somebody's saving somebody until the 90s, until Belle came out. Belle was the first one that was an independent woman. So, that's a lot of our conditioning we had to get out of it. It wasn't until then, it wasn't until probably I'd say my own daughter, wanting to decide what I wanted to teach my own daughter, where I started realizing, man, I've been really conditioned to be a bit of a misogynist myself. Because I did look down at women who just decided to grow up and just take care of babies. I felt like we were given a big opportunity to get out there. But then when I became a mom and I realized I had this wonderful career and all these letters after, you can't do it all. You can't do it all that way because the patriarchy was never set up for you. So here we got something new, guys. Here we've got a brand new space. We got a new moon. We've got the destruction of our education systems, the destruction of our economy, the destruction of our healthcare systems, the destruction of our spiritual systems, our churches and our things. There's a lot of distrust and all these things. So what are we going to do now? How are we going to re-embrace the fact that we've been home and it was too much? We realized how much we didn't give off to other people. We're forming new fraternities in our homes, or we're destroying our homes because we realize we can't do it. How are we going to be doing this recovery? How are we going to relate to the fact that we've been in a high-pressure career and we love it so much, but we really actually liked being on the schedule with our family and being able to have lunch together and make their meals and do these things that we had convinced ourselves, oh, the nanny can do it. Oh, I have these meal prep things. That's good enough. What if we really like it? What if we really like to embrace our mothering vibe? Because again, some of us have matured out of the maidenhood. We don't want to kick our ass anymore. We don't want to kick anybody's ass, and we don't want to take control of our sexuality by sleeping with every person with no commitment to us. We're literally letting people into our body. We're literally allowing them to maybe give us a really hard choice about having to have an abortion or not. We can't just say it's the same thing for women as men. Like, we can't move our feminism into actually putting ourselves at a disadvantage, which is what we did. Our bodies are not equipped for the patriarchy. And the patriarchy has yet to learn enough about the woman's form. Half of them, half of, I mean, I'm not even going to say, I'm going to say the patriarchy. I'm going to say the lipstick patriarchy and the patriarchy. A lot of women do not know the difference between labia and vagina. So I'm not even going to say it's men, but definitely men, you go send them out for maxi pads, they'll bring you back tampons. You send them out for tampons, they'll bring you back maxi pads. They have no clue what's going on, and neither do women, because we're not set up for the patriarchy. I mean, we were set up for the patriarchy. It doesn't fit our bodies. It doesn't fit us. So nobody really recognizes what a strong feminine looks like. That's why somebody like Brene Brown is able to come on in and sell you 1 million books about the gift of vulnerability, because she shows the strength in it. But it's always been there, ladies and gentlemen. It's always been there. When a guy tenderly holds the baby for you, you fall back in love, because it's always been there. He hasn't felt it yet. We didn't allow him to feel it yet. We haven't put him through his girl power phase, and he hasn't had his Spice Girls, and he hasn't had his, where is the school of men supposed to go who want to compliment you as you rise in your femininity, with or without kids, by the way? Where are these partners that want to be on your team and invite you to be a fraternity without being married to them? They don't know how to approach you because nobody's been teaching them. And nobody's been teaching us how to hold our power in a way that doesn't threaten them. And nobody's taught them how to not be threatened in seeing our full power. And so I am asking you to start seeing your feminine, no matter what body style you're in, whatever sexuality you take, whatever religion you are, whatever country you come from. I'd like you to start looking back at every story you were ever told about what's right and what's wrong. Wherever you get your ethics and your core values, I want you to go back to those Bibles, those Torahs, those Korans, those Vedic scriptures. I want you to go back to the things your mother and father told you. I want you to go back to what the school books told you. And I want you to reread some of these stories, imagining yourself in the woman's point of view, the collaborative, the mothering, the wise elder holding space for healing. Not necessarily manipulating you, but literally holding space for you to transform. Being the seasons of the year that allow the things underneath the ground to do their thing, the bears to hibernate, everybody to change in so many ways, the butterfly to evolve in a cocoon where nobody sees it. I challenge you to take this new moon cycle, and I would love, 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 love to hear from you. As we move into season 4, we're going to be having a lot of these types of discussions. I have a second podcast, The Evolving Human, where I'm going to be welcoming, it's a different format. It's not focusing just so much on owning her health, but more of owning our health and wealth and prosperity and unity and the evolving human conversation, a lot more roundtable discussions. It's a different format, and I welcome you there for both of these points of view. And if you think there's some subject matter you'd like me to go into, and you know what? No, there's nothing that I don't think I would talk to. I would love to hear everything you would like to talk about in terms of her body, her mind, her soul, her essence coming into the world as a power and a force that we have yet to understand and see to be reckoned with. It's not a destructive one except when she's ill, when that power and force is unknown. That's what we've been seeing. That's what I call the lipstick patriarchy. When women are trying to push in a way instead of attract and pull, and not using themselves to their fullest optimization, their force, because they've never been taught to. And I'm not saying the other way doesn't work, but we're not supposed to be 24/7 on it. We were never supposed to be adrenaline junkies. We were never supposed to be workaholics. We were never supposed to be so ultra independent to cover our past transgressions and traumas that we literally can't function when something like COVID hit. And people just could not deal with staying in a house with their family for too long. They couldn't adjust. They realized all the things they were hiding by a busyness or by money or by trips and pretty, Instagram and Facebook posts about their family. They realized, gosh, I have no relationship with my partner. My gosh, we really don't have a 50-50 here. This doesn't, oh my gosh, the kids really are spoiled. Oh my gosh, they are scared and I don't know how to have a conversation because I dropped them off at daycare 24/7 and they dealt with their temper tantrum problems. And I just assumed it was the kid was tired. Or, hey, I've been a stay-at-home mom now and I've gotten all of this help from my partner here. I really like it. I hate that he or she will have to leave the house one day again. I really loved having breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. Maybe we need to admit what worked in COVID instead of be focused on what didn't. How were you blessed by the experience? Because that's the feminine. That's the co-creator. That's the mom. And it's not always about positive. It might have been that you realized, wow, I really am living like a roommate with my, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have had stress and everything should have been perfect. What I'm saying is when you had the problems, maybe we all shouldn't have been posting our wine parties and bread baking, and we should have figured out what else we could do, right? Like, why did everybody watch Netflix and whatever? Like, we literally had all that time we're always praying for to just walk outside and hang out with the family and go on nature walks and hang out in, wherever, like, right? Like, we really had a hard time getting what we wanted because we had other worries, because we're very dependent on the material roles and world we live in. And if you post your Lamborghini, you're getting really scared right now about not being able to post that Lamborghini. And if you are making money off of ways that are not allowing some people to play and get in the game, then you're being called out now too. And if there's a whole bunch of people who are even better off with the suffering going on. If you're that person, you're being highlighted too. Maybe not by you. Maybe you don't see it. Maybe you don't care. But everybody else sees it now. So there's very little that you're going to be able to Instagram filter yourself out of now from moving on. So the best thing you can do is be real. And I think the way we do that is, as much as I had to learn the boys' game, I think all you guys need to learn the girls' game. And don't dismiss the fact that you were born with a vagina, that you think you know the girls' game. Because like I said, there were many years there where I thought I was this independent woman, and what I'm realizing is I was molded by the independence of a very angry feminism, and then that turned into an obsessive, overworking, ignoring the needs of moving into the mothering vibe. And maybe I wanted to birth a company and I wanted to birth babies. Or, I see so many women in their 40s, coming towards 40, wanting to go, never found the guy, but wanting to have babies and going to a sperm bank and things like that. That's actually how we had so much of the in vitro fertilization happen. It came out of women wanting to choose when and how to have babies. But here's the thing, we can't change the fact that the mothering vibe has to happen. And if you're in a position where you can't have babies, and you're also in a position or a culture where they won't let you birth a business or birth a creative idea and bring that to have a voice in the world, then you're going to be physically hurt. Your chemistry, your mindset, your energy is going to be suppressed, and you will get dis-ease. And we're realizing that now. We're seeing how many mental health dis-eases have happened out of just being off our normal routine. A woman knows that. You know how the feminine knows that? And even the masculine, and even the man that is in touch with his feminine, because he senses things. Those people in touch with their feminine, we sense. We're sensitive. We feel when different energies are in the room. We know when different seasons have changed, and we get very tuned into our body. And when we ignore it, when we have not had the models either, we have also gotten sick. plenty of IBS, endometriosis, infertility. A lot of that is somebody who couldn't express themselves, their creativity or their power, or somehow felt, in a codependency. A lot of thyroid diseases are a woman who didn't feel like she could speak. She was brought up in a household where she was invalidated. Prove it to me otherwise. This is going to make a lot of sense to some of you guys that aren't connecting the dots normally between the mind and the body and the soul. We're really starting to bring in the soul now. See, the feminine was more connected into the soul. And that's what scared the masculine more than anything, is feelings, right? That's why they're big and broad and focus on the animalistic things of life and the primal hunt and game, and really need to feel like the providers, and their love languages are a lot of service, because we've conditioned the patriarchy to work that way. It can be non-feeling, except for where there's little safe bubbles like your family, right? But just think how many dysfunctional families were from the 50s and the 60s, right? We start to see divorces happen in freedom, but we never went back to the core of partnership. So I welcome you now, the evolutionary woman of 2021, who has more education than probably your elders ever did, who has much more technology for access, can see other cultures, can be the witness of the self with so many self-help books, yoga modalities, and all these other things. You have everything at your fingertips for self-realization. And there was a whole evolution of us that came up going through personal development and getting to that, dark night of the soul, or just kind of evolving to a point of self-mastery. But there's a whole brand new place and a graduation of some sorts. And I believe a majority of the medicine women that I work with, both in the Goddess Wisdom Mastermind, Mind, Body, Brain Academy, and just one-on-one coaching, whether it be through health or wealth with me. But at the executive level, I can tell you right now, the high performers that are feeling like they missed out on something, it's because you didn't rectify and balance out those energies of maiden, mother, and matriarch. You're moving into your matriarch years, feeling like you missed a little bit of that mothering in some way, that feminine. And I believe we're in the first generation now with the millennial type of ages, so in the 1980s being born men who are now in a position where they actually would really like to not just be mothered, where they actually do like the wise matriarchs they see. So we're talking about post-menopause being an empowering time, where we're going to stop talking about it being a dreaded, horrible time. You get all frumpy and talk about weight control all the time and this and that. We're going to start talking about vibrancy and vitality on this podcast. We're going to be talking about, the wise, the silver sisters with their gray hair and their beauty, and how kick-ass they hold attention, because you see their years, and yet you see this vitality in them, this power that they hold, because they have stopped. They're taking BS. This is who we should all aspire to be able to get old and to come into our vitality from the inside, to have this light shining for when we're not moving around as much and we're not distracting people. That's real power, people. To be able to leave this life and on your last breath have no regrets, that's real power, people. It's what you're trying to be rich for. That's the freedom you seek. Because getting sick trying to get it ain't going to do it. All you're going to do is spend it all on healthcare. And you're going to be miserable at the end. So, like I said, this new moon, just take the next 30 days or so to try to look at all those stories you were told from a much more feminine. If you have a mommy issue, go in and try to get back into her life and what she saw and what she was exposed to, and why she may have been in a broken model of the feminine, in a hurt victim, either as the inner child being unheard, the saboteur, the prostitute, trading off certain things for I mean, because that was a lot of those moms, right? They traded off. They might have not even liked the person, but they were just like, you give me a house, you give me a job, you give me a family, I'll take it. And they grew to love it. Yeah. Looking at ourselves in those ways. Hard assignment, right? But you know me, I go in for the deep dives. I welcome you back for Owning Her Health Season 4. I will be bringing in another podcast telling you my story and my journey and where I've been unable to do this podcast. And I will connect with you. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear your 2020 stories. Send those to info@bellyguru.com. That would be awesome. And let me know where you're owning your health right now.
Thank you for listening into this episode of Owning Her Health with Dr. Lisa Holland. To learn more about her personal and professional development service, visit her online at drlisahollandpt.com.